All right, so we didn't have time to set up the overlay, so you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. We do have a roster change. We decided to go with Helseth instead of Zeph because Zeph decided not to show up. So yeah. All right. So for those of you wondering, hello and welcome to the second episode of the Guild Wars 2 Guru State of the Game stream. This is our first live episode, so bear with us. We'll try to limit the F-bombs as much as possible. Today I'm joined by Vane from Cute. We have Java from PZ, and we have now CRS Helseth that'll be joining us, taking place of Zeph. How's it going, guys?
How you doing, brother?
Oh, so we're shy. That's excellent. Don't worry, I'm just going to talk the whole show. So this is a state of the game according to Grouch.
Cool with me.
All right. So I guess we're kind of just going to get rolling into this. We're going to do a little catch up here and talk about what has happened since the last episode and kind of recap a little bit on what happened with the last episode. Kind of the biggest thing that we saw there was the private servers are on back burner and matchmaking and rating are top priority. I think it's a good change, to be honest. I think the game needs the matchmaking and the ranking more than it needs the private servers. Private servers sound nice, but I think it's very niche for the time being. You guys kind of feeling the same way about that?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree, man. Like, I think right now people need to see, some type of leaderboard. Like, QPs doesn't really mean anything, and everyone knows that. They want to see the wins, the losses, the actual matchmaking system come out way before that. It totally makes sense, though, that, a private server should come out, because, we were actually talking to Helseth with our team, and, we do want to get some scrimmages going on, and, it kind of makes it hard if we're just focusing on doing it through hot joins. It's, viable. You can still do it, but it's not that big of a deal. So. I'd rather see the matchmaking. Sorry.
Yeah, a newly formed team should never get to meet top teams that are practicing every day for 8 hours when they're going in for the first time. They really need to prioritize the ranking as soon as possible. Yeah.
It's that's been going on for a while, and it's definitely a bad thing. But I feel like if there were private servers, then other organizations, for example, Guild Wars 2 Guru, could be making ladders their own, by themselves. They could make leaderboards of some kind. They could have tournaments if there were private servers.
That's true. When I think of matchmaking, though, and the rating, I kind of think of solo queue. I don't think they're putting that in right away, but I think solo queue is pretty... it's kind of required for this game to be successful. The thing about having the private servers is that those are only 4 teams, and it's still hard to find people that are decent enough to play with, unfortunately. You can't really judge how good someone is just by playing hot join or by doing freeze, because inevitably in freeze you're still getting rolled by teams that are sick of waiting for an hour in the paid queues during the middle of the day.
Yeah, that is a problem with the game. It is fairly difficult for new players to get onto a team, and you can't really play without already having one. So,
yeah, it's from my experience, anyways. I've only been playing a little bit since I came back. It's very niche now. Like all the players that were around when I was around, a lot of those teams have disbanded, but they've all kind of stuck together. A lot of the teams are just kind of a mesh of a lot of other teams now. So everyone who was kind of on top 2 months ago is still, relatively on top still. I don't see a lot of new players in the mix.
It's more or less impossible to get into the scene if you are new at the moment. It's teams aren't very interested in taking in someone who's rank 0, nor in taking in someone who has 0 qualifying points. But in order to get the qualifying points, you need a team. So it's this vicious little cycle where you need a team in order to be competitive at all. But in order to be competitive, you need to have had a team. Again, a solo queue would really fix this, but as it is right now, it's more or less impossible for new players to get competitive in Guild Wars, I think.
I think it's a little bit beyond that. Like, if you look at, I hate to use World of Warcraft as an example, but if you look at World of Warcraft, you leveled 1 through 80 to be in the competitive scene, and that was your training wheels. You PvPing and knowing your class all the way up there is your training wheels. So I think, with that being said, when you come into Guild Wars 2 as PvP, you want to do that. That's your genre. PvP all the way. It has to be also a community thing to help each other out. Like it's been before in the past where everyone is just focusing on their own team. There is no help. I'm seeing it kind of take a turn in a different direction, but it's just beyond what the devs can do. It's got to be, like a community progression type thing. this game is so tight knit right now, and we run into the same people over and over. So if we do progress by helping other people out, it will really work. Just if I say, hey, Helseth, I don't know Mesmer real well, can you help me in this direction? And you come back with, yeah, dude, here, this is the information. Instead of you ask some random guy this, the other guy's like, just screw you, I'm not going to give you that information. I think it kind of makes it hard for people to learn. It turns people away from the PvP aspect, especially when they're coming in just getting absolutely demolished in these frees. They need to take something out of it to be able to learn. So
Yeah, I agree. We're kind of just going to go down the list here of the stuff that they mentioned. And again, this isn't in any really particular order. I don't know the order of the stuff being released. Obviously, the next thing they said that they wanted to do was implement like actual leaderboards. Hopefully something a little bit more substantial than the QP system. I think it's pretty much a general consensus that the QP system is just like a measure of time invested.
Yes.
Like, do you guys feel like that does it indicate like your level of skill at all?
Definitely not.
And I think it's even worse
there's
now.
a little bit into it. I mean, if you're not constantly winning the paids, then you're not gonna be able to play paids at all. There was a great post on the forums which mathematically displayed how often you could play paid tournaments without winning. And I mean, in the end, if you're on the top of the QP, then you're most likely winning versus all the other top players. And at the moment, the only form of being competitive is in the paid tournaments. Obviously, there are exceptions. I mean, there are plenty of great players that aren't on the top, but yeah, our ranking system is better, but I think QPs is all we have at the moment.
I think it's even worse now, though, just because they made it so that you get QPs even if you're not the number one. And so someone who's like number two can just grind out games. Even if they're not consistently winning first place, they can still theoretically outpace someone who wins all the time but can't play as much.
yeah, I agree. It's the old system they had for QPs where you got like one QP for winning was definitely dominant over everyone getting QPs depending on your placement, second, third, so on. Because it's just like that. It's literally playtime at that point. These other guys that are winning consistently, it doesn't show. You look at that QP leaderboard, you're like, wow. There's so many people with these massive amount of QPs. How many losses are there? There's a lot of wins too, but you don't actually see the loss count, the win count, and that's what people do want to see. That's where you actually see the skill of the team.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing on the list they mentioned is spectator mode. Obviously, that's been a widely discussed topic. Personally, obviously it's needed, but I don't think it should be anywhere near like on the list of priorities. I think this game needs like the basic matchmaking features, custom arena, everything else, just to make the game actually esports competitive before they even look into making it like from a spectator point of view. I mean, do you guys think that should be highly prioritized, or should it be put on the back burner?
I
Even
think
if it
there's.
was prioritized. Oh, you're going.
I was just gonna say, I think there's enough people that do stream currently that they can watch their playstyles, watch what they do, the communication between the team. Because no matter what, if you look at it, if you're spectating, you're not going to also hear what's really going on between the team, that team synergy. There's so much more to this game than just what that person does by himself. And I think that's where the actual skill cap is at. Your team play and how you guys move as a team. It's not necessarily just what that guy does by himself. So I would say it'd be awesome if they do implement that in the future, but it's definitely not a priority.
Yeah, right.
And,
There's
as the game is at
already
the moment, there isn't gonna. I mean, even if there was a spectator mode, as you can see from the Twitch viewers at the moment, like nobody really cares about watching Guild Wars all that much. Like at tops, the most popular streamers tend to get like barely 100 viewers, or a little above that. No.
That's what I was going to say. Like, there's enough players that are good at the game, and pretty much all the good players want to stream, but they're not pulling in the numbers necessary for them to, for it to make money for them.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good streaming to like 10 people. It kind of feels like a waste of time. Also listed here, they talked about the daily and monthly tournaments. The daily tournaments is something they mentioned just the last time on the show, and I hadn't heard of that before. Like a daily automated tournament, kind of like how the monthlies are going to be. Are you guys looking forward to that at all?
I assume it would be. I mean, in Guild Wars 1, I don't know if any of you played Guild Wars 1, they had automated tournaments 3 times a day. And I think that system is a lot better than the paid tournament system, because it gives people multiple times throughout the day to be on. With the paid tournament system now, a lot of people, for instance, Asian players or Australian players, they just don't get to play because of the time of day that paids pop, and they don't pop any other time. With the automated tournament system, they can play whenever they're on.
All right. They also mentioned dueling. I don't really think anyone really cares about that. Lastly, they also mentioned stats and scoring. Kind of just fluff at this point. It'd be interesting to kind of see certain things about that, but I don't know. I think it kind of is really far down the list of priorities that it really doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
I don't care about dueling.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to a hot join and duel. I mean, eventually it's going to get exposed and, people are going to join your hot join, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
I think everyone that's on a competitive level knows that it's not just about 1v1s that make this game.
I think we're going to catch a lot of flack for that. I know a lot of people on the forums want the dueling system in really bad, but personally, I just don't think that it's even needed right now. Like you said, just join a hot join game, and if someone joins and ganks you, what's the big deal? Your pride's a little bit, but just find another game.
Well, also, once private servers are out, they can just duel there, so hopefully it's a higher priority.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so that's kind of like what's coming. Hopefully, that's at least what we gleaned from the last conversation with Arena on the last episode. But what's happened since then? We had the December 14th patch, which obviously included a lot of underwater balance changes and buffs, I guess. Not huge there. There was two things in that patch, though, that were pretty big. One to a lesser extent was the downstate HP was originally nerfed to 75%, and they decided to buff that again up to 85%. How do you guys feel about that? Do you guys
definitely a good change. I liked it originally. I don't know why they wanted to reduce in the first place. Well, I mean, I know why they wanted to, but I don't agree with the reasoning. I think it makes running a glassy team too beneficial to you, because if you can get one person down and then they just can't be rezzed because their health pool is so low, and the way rezzing works, where you're rezzing them by a percentage of their max health, which is now lower, it just makes it a lot better for you to run a full glassy team, and I don't like that.
Right. Well, actually, I was playing with Vane last night, and he was streaming, and I kind of got in a conversation with one of the viewers, Condiments, if he's around. He actually mentioned something about maybe normalizing downstate HP, which I thought was kind of an interesting suggestion. Because if you're playing like a thief and you go down, if you're in the middle of the fray, you're pretty much done. You're going to die from AoE. You're going to die from just the fluff. But if they normalize the HP for everyone, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting concept. What do you guys think of that?
I think if you are going to be playing glass, it should be pretty easy for them to finish you off. So I like the way it is now. I just don't think it should be as low as it is for people that aren't a glass cannon.
Okay, so maybe a little... that's interesting.
I mean, while we're on the subject, I would say by playing Ellie, they need to fix the... I know the whole downstate prior to their fix to Ellie's downstate was just totally worthless. But with an Ellie regenning health or regaining health after he missed, kind of screws the whole system. Like it doesn't balance out, DPSing the body, because you DPS the body and then he gets back up and then he regens health. And I think it's a little bit too strong. I think he should be able to mist up, but at the same time, his health doesn't regen. And I think a lot of players do agree with that. So.
Wow, straight from an elementalist. There you have it. So I didn't say it. Vane did. Don't get mad at me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most, if not everybody, agrees with that.
Yeah, Ellies have the strongest downstate for sure, because they can die in the front lines and then just mistform back to their allies to get res, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, there was another subject here that caused a lot of rage, a lot of forum posts, a lot of tears. Weapon swapping and utilities being locked once the game starts. I think it's a good change. I liked it personally. I haven't played with it a lot because I haven't really been playing the game much the past, since the November patch, personally. But I liked it, and I've actually talked about this before on a show I did previously to this, that I thought it should be something that should be implemented, and they went ahead and did it. So I agree with it. How do you guys feel about it?
Big shock factor at first. I think it caught really everyone off guard. I was a huge abuser of just swapping to my staff real quick to gain that swiftness. So it makes sense in that aspect. Other classes just becoming even more mobile. That I'm running a mobile class as is. I think that was a little overpowered, if you will. But I think some classes took a huge hit on it. Say Necros. Necros are forced to run certain weapon sets and to be viable themselves in tournaments. And all you see Necros now doing is literally walking everywhere. They're getting their swiftness from everyone else. They have no mobility, if you will. So I think it's a bigger hit on certain players, and I don't know. I think that there's something needs to be in between there. I think.
I don't agree with the change. I assume why they did it is because it just looked really clunky, like for streamers to go into their inventory all the time. Playing with their inventory open to swap between weapons to do it efficiently, it just looks weird. So I assume that's why I did it. It's the only reason I can think, because I think giving people more options, what utilities they're going to use, what weapons they're going to use from fight to fight is a good thing. I'd assume they'd think that as well. So I don't agree with the change at all.
I absolutely loathe the change. I mean, Danto and I were on the forums, and we were one of the people that were crying over it. It feels like they really don't know the depth into it that actually existed. It's like I think the way they looked on it is that they saw that people got swiftness from the weapon swapping and kind of stopped their thinking there. It felt like that they didn't actually go beyond that, but the game gets a lot more strategically deep when you had all these options you could swap to, say. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but for an example, just swapping to Smoke Bomb on the Thief and then doing blast finishers using different weapons into that smoke field for stealth for around 14 seconds, and then you can do a lot of tricks with that. And now such ideas are gone, and they were actually great for comeback opportunities, especially on Legacy, like where you could stealth in the base and then do swiftness, put a portal near the opponent's close base, and then you attack middle base. And when the enemy gets distracted there, you portal to their close. I mean, a lot of opportunities and tactics and such that are just gone. And there's no point in removing options. Options that were for everybody, and the only reason they removed it feels like is they called it abuse. And
yes,
right. And it lowers the barrier of entry for a new player to get to the high level, but I think it's a bad idea for them to be restricting how good a player can be at their class. I think they should want the skill ceiling to be higher, and they're continually lowering it. Yeah. So
if you really look down into it, like capitalizing on what Helseth said, it's like promoting counter comping as well. You know what I mean? Like that player's running this now and he can't change. Like for instance, me and Java used to go head to head, when he was on Treb, and that's an uphill battle for me as an Ellie, running dagger anyways. But little stuff like me swapping to like Cleansing Fire or Soldier's Amulet, like it, I guess, allowed me to engage that battle instead of it just being a hard counter to me and me being able to do nothing whatsoever to that. And I don't think that if you want to go esports, you should ever promote counter comping. And I think that's what it does. It guides it in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Well, then after that, we also had the January 4th patch. I guess it was the 3rd? It was yesterday?
Yeah,
it was yesterday. So the 3rd, I guess. And this change added a 0.25 second global cooldown on Mesmer Shatters to prevent multiple shatters on the same illusion. Basically looking to prevent people from macroing the abilities together, or again, just getting multiple shatters on the same illusion if you were really quick with it. I think the consensus from most good Mesmers is that they like the change. It's kind of just like proving that, like, look, I'm not macroing, I'm actually good at the game. So I'm particularly interested in hearing Helseth's take on this before we get rolling.
There's really not much to talk about. The nerf itself is completely irrelevant to the actual play. I mean, I haven't gotten any bit weaker because of it, and no other Mesmer has, really. It's just a way to deal with the exploit, and it's also a temporary way to deal with the exploit. If you look at the forums, ArenaNet has actually made a post where they said that this is just a way for them to deal with the exploit until they find a better fix for it. Since it was an abuse, getting multiple shatters of one clone and such.
Yeah, and on top of that, they also they reverted Shattered Strength back to how it was before, and then also put this global cooldown, which I think speaks to a larger issue, that last patch the buff to Shattered Strength in the first place just didn't belong. Like, the fact that they're now on top of reverting the Shattered Strength buff, they're also nerfing Mesmers a little bit more. Just shows that that buff shouldn't have gone through in the first place, and that's a pretty big problem, I think. It's like the Shatter Mesmer is the only spec that every team has. Like, everyone else will have slightly different specs or some different characters, but every single team has a Shatter Mesmer, and the fact that that was buffed, I just don't understand.
It was pretty weird. I've noticed a lot of complaints on the PvE section that Mesmers don't have any AoE damage, so it could have been a response to that. But in that case, they must have just not had their eyes at all on the PvP meta.
Right. I am assuming that it was a buff to PvE, because I've played with some PvE Mesmers and they do a lot less damage than everyone else, so they obviously need their overall damage increased for PvE, but it should have been a PvE only change.
Just for those that are listening that are curious, Shattered Strength is the trait that gives might stacks per illusion that's shattered. What was the original? Was it 3? Or the new one, or the one they just previously nerfed was 3 stacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, so it was originally 1, then they buffed it to 3 stacks per illusion shatter, which combined with the multiple shatters on same illusion that people were macroing or just getting lucky with, people were getting up to like 25 stacks of might, right?
Yeah, 24. Every time you do your macro, you get 24 stacks of might. Compared to now, you get like 6 stacks of might, so it's a pretty big difference.
What were the shatter numbers like?
I was able to pull up to like 4.8k, 4.9k on heavy dummies, and now post nerf, I only get up to like 3k. So it's a big hit.
Okay.
The bigger nerf to it was confusion. The damage you were able to do with the confusion, like you do confusion per shatter, and with the might stacks, the condition damage was buffed, and you got like 200 damage on every single skill use for each stack. So they got like hurt for ridiculous numbers for the confusion as well. So I mean, if you survive the one shot, you're gonna die the second you try to do your heal.
Right, all the might was giving them a lot of condition damage that they didn't spec into, so.
It's kind of comical. Let me change the subject for a second. Someone in chat just said that we have 347 viewers in chat. Everyone who PvPs in Guild Wars is actually here right now. That is amazing.
War.
Hello, PvPers.
Oh man, I'm completely impressed.
But it really speaks for the tragic state of the game when we have this little people in a multi-million selling game. It's I really think that just the lack of solo queue is strangling the PvP community quite a bit, because again, like previously mentioned, there's the only way to actually be competitive in this game is either you play hot join, which is one of the most boring things I've ever encountered in my life. You do nothing. You just see circs of people running around. Or you go to free tournaments where you have the option of losing to a full team, or completely stomping full teams. Assume either if you have a team, you're gonna stomp. If you don't have a team, you're just gonna lose. Or you go to pay tournaments where you're gonna be up versus the best players in the world who have no life, who play all the time, and they're gonna stomp you. And there's no middle ground. There's no ranking system. There's nothing to play alone with. They really need to start working on the matchmaking for the game's sake, I feel like.
Well, in response to that, when they just need, I guess, a higher type of reward system, something more sought after. Like right now, like we kind of touched base on this earlier, but all you get is QPs. That's nothing. Especially you look at certain teams in EU that have like thousands of QPs and all that shit. Like, excuse my language. Thousands of QPs, and you get a brand new team coming in, and they're not going to compete at that. They're not going to go for the QP leaderboard. They'll never catch up. It's just the way it'll work. So I do know that they're going to reset it. I have heard that through the grapevine type thing, but over that, WoW had mounts, titles, new gear. Like, shouldn't you be able to compete for that? You really haven't heard much from ArenaNet on that subject as to what you're going to get, as to what you're going to compete for. You get all this glory that you have nothing to spend on, and you just stack it up, and you get gems. And literally, I use gems just for tickets, nothing else. Like, nothing in that gem house means anything to me. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Speaking to that point, I think it raises the problem that the paid tournament system itself is just not a good system to be having in a competitive game. Like, for instance, just the way it's designed, if they did put ELO into just the paid tournament system, it would already not work as well as an ELO system should be working in other games. It wouldn't work properly because the way paid works, with NA specifically, we'll only have one queue going at a time. So if you win that queue, you've gotten 3 wins worth of plus elo. You can't possibly lose more than once in that hour-long period of that paid. So the good teams are going to be gaining a lot more elo than a team who plays just as much, who only lost one game, lost in the first round. It's just not a good system.
It'll be inflated just like QP.
The whole tournament format is quite incorrect. You should, a single map matchmaking with a rating system. They've made it a lot more complicated than they need to with these paid tournaments and free tournaments and all these tournaments in general. Just a single map and then playing. Because especially now, we still have this problem where if we want to play, we don't play free tournaments, and I'm guessing that you guys don't really do either when you're in for serious practice. So you only have the option to play during paids, and the only time you can play paids are during these hours. In Europe, that's 7 to 1. And that's only because that's only during the hours where there's going to be 8 teams on at the time. And that wouldn't have been a problem if we could queue up at any time, because then we'd just... it shouldn't be hard to find one other team out there, even with I don't know, 12 player base we have.
Right. Even if it was only 4 teams, they'd probably still pop all throughout the day. It seems to me that they quite literally made the system the worst that they could, for the competitive structure, and I don't understand, why this is the system that they gave us if they wanted it to be an esport game. Making it require 8 teams to start, it says to me that they never even considered having the ELO system built into it, because of, as I just explained, the way that would play out, it just doesn't work properly for an ELO system, so it says to me that they never intended to have ELO in it, so I don't get it.
I think the tournament system works great for the dailies and the monthlies, or will work great when those come out. But yeah, for the matchmaking and rating, it's not going to work. And hopefully, we obviously don't know what they're going to do for the February patch, but I'm really hoping that they remove it, or at least give you the single map matchmaking that everyone wants.
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
I was just saying that I think that the tournament queues work great for maybe the dailies and the monthlies, but for this current system, and they want to implement rating with it, it's not going to work.
Oh, right, yeah. The system that there is now, it shouldn't be limited to 8 teams. The automated tournament system should take as many teams as sign up at the time that the AT is supposed to be starting. That's how they worked in Guild Wars 1, and it was a great system. All throughout the rest of the day, you could queue up 1 team versus 1 team, just one map. That's how the queue worked.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good system. It's the system most games use for an obvious reason, and I don't know why we don't have that system. Hopefully we get it.
Yeah, hopefully it's coming. They got to do something. All right. I kind of want to touch on this as well. I know I didn't put it in the notes. I know you guys aren't prepared, but we mentioned it's very difficult for new teams to get into paids. First of all, there's the ticket prices, which are pretty steep. There was a really interesting post on the forums, and I don't remember who wrote it. I think it was a guy named Reroll. He did a lot of math in regards to actually being with the top teams, or the lower end teams, like the teams that place 8th through 3rd. You're always losing tickets. Essentially, and for every tournament round that starts, 200 tickets are put in, and only 100 come back out from gems. It's kind of a lot, and the prices are really steep. So essentially, these people who are going in and trying to get into the paid scene, they're going in, they're losing the first couple rounds, and they're losing all of that, and they're gonna have to go back out and farm free tournaments for the next 3 hours to get the tickets back for that, unless they want to go ahead and buy tickets, in which case they could spend 800 gems or 600 gems, and then they can, if they still place between 8th and 3rd place, they're still going to lose tickets, and they'll do a maximum of I think it's 13 paid rotations, and that's for $10 per player.
Right.
It's too steep to get in, and if you can't compete, if you can't stay on the same level or even do well, you're losing money. You're just throwing it away.
Right. I think that goes to the fact that ArenaNet's got the stance that they have to have the PvP community separate from the PvE community. They want the PvP community to pay for its own servers. Where I think, if you look at World of Warcraft, for example, the PvP in that game exists only to sell more copies of the game. Like, they don't really intend to balance it. They don't intend for it to be an esport, really. They just want people to buy the game to play the PvP, and then they're forced to get involved with raiding, which makes them play the PvE, which is what Blizzard actually cares about. And I think a system like that should be more of what they're thinking of, where the PvP is just so good that people are going to be seeing it on streams, seeing it at tournaments. They want to buy the game to get involved in it. And also other games such as, Heroes of New Earth or League of Legends, where you can buy skins and stuff for PvP. That's something they could do as well to help pay for the PvP, and I'm assuming they'd make more money off that than with the tickets system right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys think they should reduce the costs, or
Reduce? Yes. Reduce or completely nullify. Get it out. I don't think you should need tickets to go in the first place. If they did have some type of rating system that they had thought of thoroughly before this actually all came out, then they could utilize that. If you don't win, you're not getting any rating. And if you lose, you're going down. And that's where it affects you. You look at that other team and you see that they've got like 12 losses or whatever, and they have a 0 rating. You shouldn't need to pay. You shouldn't need to pay out of pocket to go ahead and compete in these paid tournaments, because it's the whole risk versus reward thing. Like, there's too much risk involved. Because, when you go into a game and you have your team with you, there's more than just, team synergy. It goes into motivation and morale. If your team consistently loses over and over again, and you have to pay out of pocket to play, there is no motivation. Your morale goes down, your team breaks up, and then these low teams or these people are just consistently stuck in this bottomless pit of never having a team. And you see it over and over again. So, get it out, in my opinion.
I think what the tickets were was like a feeble attempt at monetizing the mists. I think they were looking for more people to buy tickets, and I think the tickets were supposed to go further, essentially. But I've never bought tickets, not with real money, anyways. I bought them with gems, like when Paids first came out. But I just can't imagine people wanting to spend actual money to buy tickets so they can go in and lose. I think they do need to find another way to make this game profitable from PvP, but I don't think that's where it's at. And I'll touch on this later on in a later segment, but I think that was the reason that they exist. It's just trying to monetize PvP in some fashion.
Gonna jump the gun on that one.
Sure, they want the PvP players to be paying for the PvP servers to be up, but, I just think this is not a good system. Like, people shouldn't have to pay just to play the game. They should be paying for aesthetic features, for their character in the game, which many games have shown, League of Legends specifically, is a very good way to monetize the game.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that all of the skins you can't use in... Oh man, people are yelling at me for my in-game sounds. Sorry, dudes. Anyways, you can't use the skins in PvP. You can only use it for PvE, so like all those purchases are useless. Like, the only thing you can do is you can buy the costumes, and you can run when you're waiting in the mists, when you're derping around waiting for queues to pop. You can have your little wizard hats on or whatever, what have you. But that's just about it.
Well, ArenaNet has. I mean, they have not only have they planned for features to earn money from the mist, but they've also they have a system there that will work. They have these costumes and things, and they could just add a ton of things into the shop without having. I mean, at the moment, I'm not sure if anyone really buys gems with money, considering that you can either get it through PvEing or PvPing quite easily. Well, I don't know easily, but you can get it. And but if they just had some sort of in-game aesthetic items that you can purchase, but you have to purchase it with real money, and further, they're going to make the private servers cost gems. So quite possible that they might even make it cost real money and such. And they have ways to monetize on it. But
well,
yeah.
I think they could be putting in a little bit more skins. Like, just make some skins that are purchasable with gems. That's not hard to do. That's not hard at all. As for you saying that you could farm gems through paids, that's true for a very small portion of the population. And the thing
really
is,
not true anymore since the rework that they did.
That's true. I guess they did limit down the amount of gems you could earn. But even with that, like, you can still, if you're a top team, you can place consistently in 1 or 2 slots. You can probably still get enough gems eventually to buy whatever you wanted. But that's only true for 2 teams out of every rotation. And the thing is, they need to appeal with these purchases to a wide audience. People want to be able to, they want people to want to spend money on the game, to log in and go, okay, I'm going to drop $10 and get this really sweet sword I found. And people are going to people are going to cry and say, I want to get that sword from skill or, from my ranking or whatever, but just the sad fact is you're going to have to deal with it. And then if you want that sword, you have to buy it.
Right, there's skins for PvE things that they could make a PvP version of that you only get with gems, so people have a reason, to be spending gems on their aesthetics. They could make the costumes that they release for holidays and stuff. You could be able to use those in hot joins at least. Like, if they really don't want tournaments to have people in costumes, then don't let them there, but people should at least be able to use them in hot joins, I think. Have a reason to buy them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just very difficult for people to come in who haven't played the game before and just pick it right up and start playing. You're just gonna get pooped on. That's for lack of a better term. That's just all that's gonna happen is you're just gonna get owned. Playing hot joins isn't gonna prepare you for when you jump into paids with your really cool team that you found in freeze or in hot join. Even yesterday I was playing with Vane and we went up against a couple teams. We were just derping around. We went up against some teams that were made up of levels. Again, I know rank means nothing, but they're all ranked 5 through 15, and they were getting 500 to 0 or 510, and that's just how it is. I know we probably had no business sitting in freeze, but it's just unfortunate. I think this game is especially difficult to pick up from scratch. I think all games, all MMOs in general, should have the key bindings that are default. Those are very archaic. 1 through 9 or 1 through 0 on your keyboard, plus Q and E for strafing, and then A and D for turning left and right. Really, I think the time has come to where we just need to change those keys and get rid of them and just turn them into a regular WASD and add regular actual abilities on Q and E. I'm not trying to be elitist here or anything like that, but I think it just needs to change. Nintendo, when it originally came out, it was an analog pad with 2 buttons, and obviously things have changed since then, right?
Yeah. No, and if you're a new player, you don't know what to keybind. You come in and you're trying to press 9, but we talked about this last night, no one has that long of fingers. And that means you're looking down at your keyboard to try to smack 9, and by that time it's already missed, the spell's gone, the situation has arose where you're probably now dead. So they probably do need, some standard key set, or different ones, like the Southpaw key set, showing you guys different stuff, different key bindings at whatever you feel comfortable with, or even just a how-to guide. But with earlier with what you were saying about, these poor new guys coming in, even then, they're going to go into hot joins, and even if you say give them a system where it's level 1 through 15, they're PvPing by themselves. As soon as they get to 15, and they've never experienced a frenzy 100 blade warrior, they're going to get smacked in their face. They're not going to know how to mitigate that. So it is because this system pretty much allows you to go to PvP right off the bat with never playing that class before. It's tough. It's way tougher. And World of Warcraft, it kind of capitalized on your PvPing and your leveling with your class all the way through up. You know that class, not necessarily the back of your hand, and you don't know how to do it in a competitive aspect, but you know it well enough to, know when to use certain skills to get out of certain situations. And these poor new guys, they don't know that yet, and there is nothing that helps them right off the bat. So it's kind of what kind of intuitive system would they put in that would actually help them out?
I'm seeing a lot of interesting things in the chat. People are upset that we're talking about default keybinds, actually. I think people seem to forget that this game isn't made up of the top 5%. For this game to be successful, for you guys to go into these tournaments that you want to do, you guys want this to be a successful game, just not to the extent that League of Legends is, but you want it to be a successful esport game with LAN tournaments and whatnot, online tournaments. You need a player base. Right now, if we're going to have a tournament today, there would be 360 viewers watching. That's nothing. They might as well be playing competitive, I don't even know, farming simulator. Yeah, exactly. Competitive RuneScape. It doesn't matter. You need a casual base that's interested in PvP to form your audience. Essentially, you need more players to join the game. The myths right now are incredibly empty, and that needs to be fixed as well. And bringing casuals in, or bringing people in who aren't, or making it easier to get into the PvP is definitely going to help that.
Right. Speaking a little to that and to what Vane was saying just before, I think the hot join system itself is another problem with it. The way it's set up right now, I don't think there should be the server display at all. I think there should just be a play now button, and it queues you. It puts you into servers that are constantly changing, that are just keeping you with people around your rank from map to map to map. It just keeps reorganizing to keep people similar ranks together always. I think that'd be a lot better system. I think the way it is now, the only reason for it to be this way is so you can play with your friends, but you still can't because it doesn't because it still like randomizes the teams every game, so you still can't play with your friends anyway. So it's not really needed, I think.
Yeah.
All right, we'll roll on to the next topic here. As much as I hate this word, I really hate this word. We're going to talk a little bit about the meta, I guess. And we're really not talking about strats or comps. When I say meta, I'm talking about the core parts of gameplay that essentially, if you're not running it, it's going to be a detriment to your team. Like, what are the solid things that you need to have every time that you go into a match, or you're going to be at a disadvantage? A couple things were brought up yesterday when I was talking with Vane, and I'll kind of list those off here. First one is Bunker Guard. We had Mesmer Portal. Instagib high power classes, I guess we thought that was a necessity, and then also Sustain, generally from like an Elementalist. As a subnote to that, they also mentioned Res Signets, and again with the Mesmer Time Warp. What do you guys think are like the what are the actual crucial things here that you need every time?
Right. Well, a lot of those they're not necessities to like even have a chance of winning. It's just necessities if you want to play the meta strategy, the strategy that most teams use. You'd need that sort of thing on your team. But if you do want to win, really all you have to have is the Tank Guardian, who can survive on a point while the rest of your people are free to move off the point and fight their players that are also off the point, because they're going to have ranged DPS not on the point. You just need one Tanky Guardian to be on a point where the central fighting is taking place, and you do need a Portal Mesmer or a Teleport Guardian, something like that, that can quickly get back to a back point if they go to steal it. Because if they want to send someone to your back point to try and steal it, you want your back point person to help at mid, because you're now outnumbering them for as long as possible before he has to go back. So you need something that can get back quick.
Yeah.
I think the idea of necessity is a bit too much to say. There were some teams in Europe that were doing quite well with very different compositions. Necromancer, Double Mesmer, Thief, and Ellie, I think. There were plenty of high roaming teams, and there still are some. I don't think these compositions are truly necessary. Obviously, the metagame of like Mesmer, Guardian, Ellie, Necro, all that, it's like the standard, but you're not stuck with it. The only thing I think most teams are truly stuck with at the moment is really Mesmer and more or less Guardian for stability. But the rest is more or less optional. At the moment, like Thief is probably also crucial due to the fact that more or less nothing can kill Bunker Ellis except for Thieves at the moment. But other than those three crucial roles, I think the rest is just up to you.
Well, I think Mesmer Port puts way too much pressure on a team. Like, if you're a team not running Mesmer Port and you're going against a team that is, you're going to lose. Like, it's just the way it works. Like, you're going to be outnumbered all game. You know, there's certain instances that, you know, the whole OPA build works really, really well. You know, Legacy works extremely well. Kylo works extremely well. But what about first map? It's going to be the hardest map for that team. And if they're going against a Mesmer, going to keep, and they're trying to 5-man keep against you all game, and you're getting, you know, it's a 5v4, it's almost completely unfair, and it forces that team into that pit of running that Mesmer. I think if they simply did something intuitive, like, you know, reduce or, you know, lock that utility of not using port in game. They're not necessarily getting away from that port, but, you know, they're also throwing out there different things, like, you know, different things can off-node. You know, that Guardian can off-node, that NGs can off-node. You know, people are saying that NGs are extremely underpowered right now, but everyone knows they're great at node control. So you're putting them in that aspect again. You know, I mean, you're putting them on off-node, which a lot of people did at the beginning of this game. Once people started running those Mesmer ports, then that's kind of when it, you know, really changed. And that's been the way it is for the past, like, 3 months. So I personally believe that Mesmer port should be taken away. I think it'll be like you'll see way more different compositions. You'll see, you know, different versatile classes. You're going to see where people said, hey, this spec isn't viable, or, you know, you just can't run this certain type of, you know, player or character, then you're going to see it now. You will definitely see a lot more NGs if you take port out of the game.
From my point of view, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really picture the game without Portal. Obviously, I'm a Mesmer, and I'd like to keep my Portal intact. But it feels too drastic. Like at the moment, Mesmers are more or less a must because the only thing that can port back from mid is Mesmer and Thief with the trap. But
Or teleport guardians. But right, as you're saying, that's basically what I was going to say. That Mesmers have to have portal. That is, it's part of their class. Like that's what they do in PvP, and the concept of it isn't really overpowered. I think the cooldown on it needs tweaked. I think the number of people who can go through it needs tweaked. I think the distance on it might need to be tweaked. Like those things can be played with, but portal existing itself is a really important part of the game. I think it'd be a lot more stale without it. I think it's good that it's there. I think most of all that if there were more truly competitive teams, you wouldn't see everyone using a backpoint Mesmer. You'd be seeing teams that have an assault character that's very tuned for killing Shatter Mesmers, which would make that Shatter Mesmer just not useful for falling back to defend the backpoint. Things like that where the Mesmer wouldn't be just so important. But right now, because there aren't actually a lot of competitive teams, you see teams that are like a step behind the highly competitive teams that just see that highly competitive team that is using the backpoint Mesmer and just copies it. And that just is what set the meta now. But I don't think that that's how it will be forever, and it doesn't really need to be taken away.
Also, I kind of doubt that Engis would be what would be picked over Mesmers. Rather, you'd probably just take something like, I don't know, Elementalist, and coupled with Blink and Ride the Lightning could get back to the point before a decap, more or less. And they can just bunker it forever.
I think that kind of falls into what ArenaNet actually wants from us as players in itself. Like, you know, we've been dancing around the topic for so long. It's so general that we don't know what they want the meta to be. We don't know what they want the comps to be. We don't know if it's a big team fights that they want or, you know, small skirmishes around the map. And because of that, now, you know, we're playing to our own play style. But if they came out and said, hey, this is kind of what we want to see, this is kind of what we're gearing towards, then, you know, a lot of the competitive teams, I'm sure, would play towards that. It's more along the lines of, hey, if this is going to happen in the future, I want to play towards it now. I want to gear towards that. And because we haven't really got that, like the most we've gotten is class philosophies. And to be honest, those class philosophies are pretty on point of, you know, the description of what they want each character to do. But like, you know, you see teams running this 4 to 5 man Zerg, and you see other teams running small skirmishes throughout the map. Like, I guess it's two different playstyles, but is there something that they are gunning for that, you know, we just don't know? And that is kind of what's going to really answer that question with Mesmerport. I think
the fact that teams can run either way is an important part of the game. If and when it does become competitive, that teams can build their teams like. To talk about League of Legends a little bit, you know how every team has the exact same basic setup. They've got the 180. You know, we all know the setup for a League of Legends team, and I think it's better, you know, in this game where you can have teams that have a different orient of how they're going to be playing, like the whole team play style. I don't think they should have the game balanced around just making it small skirmishes or just making it a team fight. You should have the ability to play for either way, from map to map or from team setup to team setup.
That's where the strength of port comes in. You can force teams to do stuff that they don't want to. I mean, you could call that strategy. You can call it, you know, player skill and synergy between team. But, you know, using a Mesmer portal really forces another team to play a certain type of way. You can force big team fights. You can force small team fights. Whatever you want to do with Mesmer port. And I feel like that is too strong for one class. You know, maybe they reduce the distance between, you know, mid to node. They can't port directly onto their node. They're like 10 feet away. Or something small. Maybe one person can come through it. But I think, honestly, something needs to change with Mesmerport.
Well, I assume you're talking about faux fire with, you know, that. And yeah, yes. that is a problem with faux fire. I strongly believe faux fire is less balanced than the underwater map, and it shouldn't be in the tournament rotation. And if they understood high-level play a little bit better, they'd probably have taken faux fire out of the rotation already, because it does severely limit the play style of both teams. You have to play 5v5, and there's no other option. You will lose if you don't. So I just think that's a bad map. But the other two maps, you know, the Mesmer portal's fine. It's not so much more overpowered than other sorts of backpoints where it needs to be taken out.
I agree. Like that's hurtful.
I will say I'm just short of getting my Champ Illusionist title, and I hate playing Mesmer. I hate playing Mesmer because it's so stressful. If you lose backpoint, I'm so guilty. Like I feel like I failed. And sometimes it's really hard to get back. I don't know. I'm personally, I feel like if they can move the meta away from having Mesmer with Portal, like Mesmer would be a much more enjoyable class. It's a lot of pressure to actually like contribute in the mid fight and keep an eye on your node, and then get back and then be able to fend off whoever came back to your point, and not fail. Essentially, you don't want to lose that point.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a lot of pressure for you now, but as you said, you're not even a champion illusionist yet. You know, imagine what's 2,000 games as it. It's just going to be second nature to you.
Right.
But that's how the class plays. Like, it's the role that it's supposed to be filling, and if they took Portal away, you just wouldn't see Mesmers. So
Yeah. Aside from, I mean, Time Warp is amazing and all, but it's the reason why we pick Mesmer is because it can come into the team fight and support it, while keeping the close node covered. If we didn't have Mesmer, I'd just go. If we didn't have Portal, I'd just go Elementalist or Thief or something. But there's no real need without Portal.
right, other things can get back to the point fast enough for it to not get decapped.
Yeah.
It's just the Mesmer Portal lets you be lazier, essentially.
All right, what do you guys think about res signets? Is this kind of a non-issue now that they changed the utility swapping?
It's not as hurtful anymore, but I feel like it forces a lot of teams to use it. You know, you see one Necro using it on the other team, you have to focus that Necro or keep, CC on that Necro, which you, again, could call player skill, team skill. You know, you sit your Necro on top of him, wait for him to res sig, and you fear him. But because of that, it's locking down a lot of Necros as to what they want to use. It's like playing into the whole meta right now of, Mesmer's running Illusion and, the Necro's running res sig. I think it's too powerful for what it is, in my honest opinion, especially Necro res sig.
I have a feeling that res sig is actually the reason why they nerfed the utility swapping. I mean, even when I played 2 months ago, I was playing Necro. It was really easy to swap in, Signet of Undeath, into a fight and res, and then it guaranteed res as you're running in. And you wouldn't normally use that. You wouldn't normally use that utility unless you're in that position. And so I guess you could say it's increased skill cap, but it just seems to me like you have such like a wide selection of things you could use for any situation. It doesn't seem balanced to me in my head, anyways.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. From what I saw, most Necros kept the res sig no matter what, in case someone got downed. It wasn't my case as my Mesmer that I used to run Nullfield a lot, and then I swapped to Illusion of Life rather when it was necessary. It just felt like a part of the game, and I really don't see why we're removing viable options that both teams can use, which isn't going to be game breaking.
For the res sig skills, the rest of the members of my team all very much hate them, but they actually don't bother me. I mean, in my mind, it's such a long cooldown compared to what it gives you that I think it's useful to have, but it's like I never think it's overpowered. Especially with the mechanic that it works. Like if you poison a corpse and damage it a little bit, the res sig won't even res them. It'll just like heal them to 90%, but not actually finish the res. And now they've just wasted a 3-minute cooldown and gained nothing from it. And they're missing out on a lot by having that utility and not having a more helpful utility for themselves to stay alive better. Also, you can just target the character that has the res utility. Kill him first, and he can't res himself with it. So they don't bother me.
Interesting take. We mentioned a little bit of Time Warp. I've heard people say Time Warp is too powerful. The radius is too big. The duration is too long. I believe it's 10 seconds. 10 seconds AoE, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, 10 seconds. And I mean, the radius is enormous. You can pretty much cover the entire graveyard on Fire. Not the entire thing, obviously, but the majority of the fight you can cover with it. And as Vane was saying yesterday, a lot of times you counter Time Warp with another Time Warp. And it just seems very strong to me. How do you guys feel about that?
It's pretty strong. It's pretty strong, but it's the same thing as with the res utilities. Like, it's such a very long cooldown. 10 seconds, I think. So 3.5 minutes. And you don't have to counter with another Time Warp. Like, you can bait them to be using it. You can spike one of their people down so they have to blow it early to get a quick res. You can feign vulnerability on your Guardian, saving his defensive cooldown, so they'll pop it thinking they're going to kill the Guardian and then Frenzy Stomp him, but he's actually saved his cooldowns. He's not going to die. He'll shelter and then ultimate and have such a long invulnerability that he's fine. So there's ways to counterplay it besides just dropping one. There's also, you can just switch to playing defensively immediately when you see go down. You know, your 4 DPS people just back off the point, leaving the Guardian there. And if he does go down, res sick him. You know, it's fine. So it's not too strong, I don't think.
I'm not going to defend Time Warp, considering how many times we've won the team fight because I've brilliantly pressed the button of it.
Yeah.
But it does feel too strong, and really, I don't think it's going to bring down Mesmer too much if it got hit. At the moment, it does indeed feel like we're having an equal team fight, so I'm going to go ahead and win it by pressing Time Warp. So, sure, I mean, if they'd nerf it, I wouldn't be crying, but like rather than focusing on such things, the main reason why everybody runs Time Warp is because everything else just pales in comparison. And
Yeah.
and the same thing applies to so many skills in this game, like nerfing all of these, well, good skills. I mean, that's all they are. They're good abilities. Time Warp might be a little bit over the top, but it's just a good ability compared to, say, Mass Invisibility and such. And
Yeah.
like, rather than focusing on nerfing everything that's decent, we might want to focus on fixing all these, frankly, surprisingly worthless utilities we've had